Okay, welcome to the HR Management Part 2 presentation lecture. Let's take a look at the hiring employees to fill positions within our organization. Please make sure that you have the note guide to go along with as we go through this Part 2 material so that you have the notes and you can use them as study tools for your assessments. All right, so when it comes to hiring, 4 points that we need to be aware of. First of all, when it comes to hiring, we have to review application materials. Usually in a hiring process, potential employees are going to fill out a job application and possibly a letter of interest and send it in to an HR department. After we have decided, based off of resumes, applications, cover letters, our finalist from that phase of the hiring process, we are then going to conduct interviews, which could be face-to-face questions and answers with an potential employee that could last anywhere from a half an hour to 45 minutes. The next step in the process would be to create employment contracts. So maybe we have somebody who we like that we are willing to offer the position to, and therefore we are going to show them and possibly make them aware of a contract that they would have to commit to if they were to accept the position. And then finally, after that, if we still have an agreement and we want to move forward, we then select our new employee. All right, let's take a look at this quick diagram, this quick graphic. As it says here, it's a little cartoon. No, I think it's a great idea to interview 4 people before deciding what your real hiring requirements are. Really? Do you really believe that? Said no recruiter ever. Nobody says this. Always do your due diligence beforehand. Screen for potential employees, conduct your interviews, all in an attempt to try and get the perfect employee in for that position based off of your needs. Don't go through the process. Don't waste time. Don't waste resources. Don't waste energy if you don't yet know what you're looking for. All right, reviewing application materials. First thing that you want to do is review the job description and the specifications. Know what you're hiring for. Familiarize yourself with those particular descriptions and specifications before looking for potential employees. Review job applications and resumes. So take a look at some of the skill sets based off of the resume, possible job history, experience in this field or other fields, and how it's going to relate to this position. So within that, we want to compare the job description with specifications. Is this person a potential fit based off of skills, abilities, experiences, et cetera, et cetera? Make piles of yes, no, maybe. So based off of all of your employees, there's ones you're going to be able to eliminate. There are ones you definitely want to bring in for interviews, and there are some that on the fence, maybe, maybe not. Go back through the maybe pile and resort. Maybe there's something that you missed the first time through. Ask for interview committees to help you possibly go through them and give them input on this. They might see something that you didn't or that you missed, and it might help either eliminate a possible employee or bring one to the forefront. And then number 3 is to schedule the interviews. Now, after we have conducted the interviews, or while we are conducting the interviews, we want to first create interview questions. Now, these can be specific to a particular position. They could be specific to the particular organization and its direction and its philosophies, but most likely it's going to be a combination of both. So after we have created the interview questions, we then are going to hold the interviews, in which case we have the potential employee come in, and then this Q&A takes place, this question and answer. More often than not, the interviews are going to happen in person. In-person interviews are going to be the best because, as most of us probably already know, 90% of our communication is nonverbal. So it's not just about the way that the answer is formulated and given, particular question. It's also some of the nonverbals, trying to get a gauge on the person's confidence, trying to get a gauge on the person's ability to problem solve, possibly answer a question that he or she wasn't expecting. All of these things are going to contribute in the decision-making process of whether not to hire an employee. Over the phone is another way. This is a strategy that's used to interview employees. Like I said, I have sat on interview committees in the past, and I have also been a part of one which is with in-person and over the phone interviews. And by far and away, in person is going to get you the better gauge on the potential employee that you're getting. Virtually, we can do this also through apps like Skype, video conference calls, things like that. It's going to allow you to not have an in-person interview, but still be able to read that person as the questions are asked and answered, and give you some sort of a read on the nonverbals as the interview is taking place. However, even some of those things can be lost through the cyber waves of a virtual interview environment. In person, still, as far as I'm concerned, are the best. Now, when it comes to interview questions, some are going to be very common, some are going to be specific to the job, some are going to even be specific to the organization. So let's take a look at some. When it comes to common interview questions, the one thing that you might be asking is, why are they asked? Why are we asking these questions? Does it pertain specifically to the position? Does it pertain specifically to our organization? Does it pertain specifically to the type of person that you're looking to put in this position? We have to have a basis behind our questions. Don't just ask questions for the sake of asking them. All right, conducting the interviews. When it comes to an HR team, the human resource manager is the person who is supposed to be putting these people in place, therefore recruiting and then also hiring. Then we will go into training and evaluating. So what else does an HR manager need to think about when preparing for or conducting an interview? What are the things that should be going on in his or her head as this process moves forward? Well, an employment contract, and actually I want you to think about, I'll go back to this slide for a second. I want you to think about this because we will be discussing this obviously with some of our in-class activities, and we're going to get a chance to actually go through an interview process, analyze some questions, and kind of take a look at some fictional scenarios and to kind of try and get a gauge on exactly what the HR manager is trying to accomplish when preparing and conducting interviews. So now when it comes to the next step, which is the creating of the employment contracts, first of all, let's define what is an employment contract. An employment contract is going to have all the specifications of the position, the date the employment started, the duties and the responsibilities of this position, the compensation, salary versus hourly pay, benefits, what type of benefits are going to come along with this in terms of retirement, possibly health care, dental care, eye care, so on. Reviews, how are you going to be reviewed and evaluated? And then termination, what are grounds for termination? What would happen? How would you be notified of being terminated? All of these are going to be included in the employment contract. Now, when it comes to different ways of compensating our employees, there's a couple different ways you can go about doing it. Wages, the amount of money paid for every hour worked, which is what a lot of you probably who have part-time jobs now are being paid on an hourly wage, an hourly rate. There's a salary, which is a fixed amount of pay that an employee receives for each week, month, or year worked. Doesn't matter how much work you do, you get paid the same amount. There's a piece rate, which maybe if you're working in type of a manufacturing organization where maybe you get paid per unit that you can produce. And if you're working in a sales environment, maybe it is commission-based, in which case you get paid a percentage on every sale that you generate. So all of these are different ways of compensating our employees for the work that they do. Now, benefits, very big selling point to a lot of employees. These are the extras that a worker receives just for being employed within our organization. Could include health insurance, dental care, eye care, 401k or retirement plans, and so on. Now, some of these benefit packages are required by law. Contributions to Social Security, have to do that. Uncle Sam's going to get his, therefore we have to pay taxes. Unemployment compensation, if you were to quit your position, be terminated, in some cases you might qualify for unemployment compensation if you were to be removed from your position at work. Therefore, you put into it, as well as your employer. Your employer will actually be the one who takes care of the unemployment end of things, not so much the employee. Workers' compensation, if you were to get hurt at work, and you could not perform your job, but if you got hurt at work and you cannot work, you still have to be able to earn some type of a wages. So what is that workman compensation? Normally it's 80% of your normal wages. Now, these costs need to be kept in mind when choosing benefits because these are all things that are going to play into it, and these are all things that the organization who is hiring the employee is responsible for. All right, now when it comes to selecting that new employee, discuss the interviews with your interview team. Normally, interview teams are made of an odd number of people, 3, 5, 7. So if a vote comes down to it, the majority of the vote would win. Revisit applications and resumes with your interview team and discuss the candidates. Have second or third round of interviews if needed. If you have potential employees who are very, very close and it's hard to make a decision one way or another. And then finally, once you have settled with yourself and your interview team on the type of candidate that you want to hire and who you want to offer the job to, go ahead, make the phone call, offer that job to the candidate. Now, the cost of a bad hire, if you take a look at this graphic on the right-hand side and go read through this, cost of a bad hire, it can really hurt you. There's no doubt about it. That's why there's such a process involved within our HR management teams in order to make sure that we sift through resumes, cover letters, and applications thoroughly, conduct good interviews, second and third interviews if needed, put together interview teams to get more input on the potential hire to try and get that best fit for that particular job, for that particular organization, without having to spend a lot of resources and training into an individual who is not going to stay or is just not going to be a good employee. All right, HR role play number 3. We will be doing this later on as we go through the HR management activities. So we'll get an opportunity to put a situation in play, in which case you guys will have the opportunity to kind of act something out and apply some of the things that we've been talking about in this presentation lecture. All right, so this concludes the part 2 hiring portion of the HR presentation lecture. Please make sure that you revisit the slides if need be to complete the notes. I will see you next time we meet in class, and I will see you back here for part 3 of the presentation lecture.